Okay, greetings everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day. Enjoying life, living life, loving life. We're going to get on with a series of videos where I'm going to do some reading from a book. I'm not going to read the whole book. It's 400 and some pages plus another almost 100 some pages or almost 200 pages of appendix and things like that. But very well thought out and researched material matter. And it's my hope to convey my opinion of the reading that I've done of it as it applies today in the modern times and how we behave as a people in society towards each other, and the terrible things that we're willing to do to each other because there's something terribly wrong with both the hearts and minds of men, most all of men. Men most willingly, or most certainly willing to lie to most any degree, if they think it's for their benefit, and that includes taking advantage of other men, other people. This is a democratic style thing where you can get a majority of the people to think that something is commonplace and natural when it's not. It's just a majority opinion. And that's where we're at today, again, repeating history. So we're going to take a look at Hitler's willing executioners. But before we get started, we're going to give a general notice for the copyright and fair use material as it relates to education, entertainment, opinion, and commentary. And so I've got it listed down below. First, we start out with King James Version, Genesis 2:7, where every breath we take is an act of God, superseding anything else, as long as you're putting it forth in peace and as true and correct as you can. The purpose of copyrights is a disclaimer saying in effect that you really don't know what the truth is. So you're supposed to do your own research to coordinate it to see if it really is true and effective in your life. So we're going to give credit to Hitler's willing executioners, of course, to Daniel Jonah Goldhagen. It's a review of material. The videos that I'm going to put forth here is to help educate the world of the shameful and unavoidable facts that may very well change the views and debates on the Holocaust. If we get into the deep aspect of the underlying factors of us ourselves being so willing to let somebody else tell us that we're allowed to perpetrate those heinous acts where we wouldn't naturally do it ourselves, that's a big problem. And that's, again, like I said, that's my opinion of where we're at today. Let me get something up here real quick. Make sure we let them know there's limitations on exclusive rights for fair use under 17 USC 107 for fair use commentary. So we're going to continue on and reading the credits for Mr. Daniel Jonah Goldhagen. And this is as the base material of this series of review videos. The writings of Daniel Jonah Goldhagen speak on ordinary Germans and the Holocaust. Professor Stanley Hoffmann of Harvard University writes an accolade. It's on the back cover of the book. And basically, it starts out, this study of the perpetrators of the Holocaust is a truly revolutionary work because of its scope and because of its argument. So again, the writing here is to convey the thought that there are the underlying factors that are far superseding any kind of race or anything like that. It's the fact that we're doing it to ourselves, and we're using race and gender and things like that as an excuse. He goes on to say, strong prejudices can push ordinary citizens into undertaking gruesome policies of extermination and of the importance of political culture in shaping a society's behaviors. And this is pertinent to the thing that we're going through now, this pandemic, as they call it, with all of the various different mask mandates and things like that that we've been supposedly subjected to because of our own will. Not only is it just our will to be able to impose that on somebody else, but we honestly believe as a society that somebody else has a right to impose that on us. Again, Genesis 2:7, God formed man of the dust of the ground. And when he breathed the breath of life into his nostrils, man became a living soul. And I don't understand what people don't understand about that. It is that simple. Every breath you take is an act of God. And that's the most simple thing we can teach to our younger generations. And as we do so, we teach them how to use each breath in respect of the providence of grace, that we get it, so that anything we put out comes back. Just like the scripture says, learn how to coin your words. Otherwise, purse your lips. A word fitly spoken is like golden apples in frames of silver. Let's go on with the next one. Hitler's Willing Executioners, published in 1996, is a great attempt, in my opinion, to help divulge the very principle that most oftentimes people are detrimental to themselves by the acceptance of that power I was just talking about, or the authority of another man, as a matter of convenience. You take it as a matter of convenience to send your children to a public education system under a military venue, postal roads and routes, for needful places and buildings, for military corporate governance. And you think it's convenient, and it comes back to bite you. They're not teaching you how to think for yourself. They're teaching you how to remember the statistical elements that prove their history. That's their history of persons. Everything written down or spoken in commentary is an invention, fabrication, or fiction. And that means if it's an invention, fabrication, or fiction, and I'm the one putting it out, that means I'm the creator of that piece. That's all it means. You don't have to take it for true. I can profess that it's true. But again, with the copyright disclaimer, it shows that you're supposed to do your research so you know if what I'm putting forth is good and faithful. As a result of various factors, the elements discussed in these readings seem to share comparatively and very similar prejudices and policies this very day. Again, the mask mandates and stuff that were experienced in the last few years, those are prevalent back in the early 1900s as well. Spanish flu, I believe. So we have to really think about this, as well as the research that shows that COVID is merely just a supposed cold virus. And we have to learn to quit believing everybody and do our own conjoined researches and our own conjoined discussions in these types of venues, so we can dispel and displace that bullshit. Okay? We don't have to accept it, but we don't have to attack it either. All we got to do is do our research so we can find out, just put it out there. Okay, well, according to the research, this is what it says. And it's plain writing. King James 7, Titus 3:8, this is a faithful saying, and these things I will that thou affirm constantly, that they which have believed in God might be careful to maintain good works. These things are good and profitable unto men. So everything you do, every breath you take, make sure you do it to maintain the good works. Again, leading right back to coin your words or purse your lips. So let's take a look at the reading here real quick. And before I do, I want to remind everybody to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. If you're on Hecklebus, get over to El Perro and do the same. And if you're on El Perro, get over to Hecklebus, hit the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, there's a couple PayPal buttons down there, just in case anybody wants to help. And to further with the copyright issue, giving credit to various other people involved in this process. Like I said, it was an extensive research. So we're going to give them credit in this first video. So there's not going to be a whole lot of content covered here. but the copyright stuff. That's very important. In a series of video in parts, this will serve as the copyright notice for all videos, and therefore it's already posted. So on the copyright page, it says this is a book. This is a Borzoi book published by Alfred A. Knopf, Inc. Copyright 1996 by Daniel Jonah Goldhagen. Maps copyright 1996 by Mark Stein Studios. Then it says all rights reserved. And this is the importance of a copyright, folks, and any copyright material. I don't care what jurisdiction you think you're in. It is, in fact, international. All rights reserved under international and Pan Am copyright conventions. All of those copyright conventions and everything, they relate to the Treaty of Berne, protecting the literary and artistic works of the creator. This is restated in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8, the same article and sections that we see for the commercial places, needful places and buildings along postal roads for persons conducting tax, impost, levying and collecting taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. It's right in there with it. And this is all I'm doing is asserting that nobody else has an authority to tell me how to coin my words. And nor do they have the authority to tell me to purse my lips. They do have an authority to come forth in peace and arbitration. Otherwise, if they want to be the one bringing the act of war, that's on them. But again, it's force majeure or to combat. I'm not part of your war. So let's go on with it. Published in the United States by Alfred A. Knopf, Inc., New York, and simultaneously in Canada by Random House of Canada Limited, Toronto. Distributed by Random House, Inc., New York. And there's a grateful acknowledgement is made to the following for permission to reprint previously published material. So again, it's important to include everybody in these copyrights so they get proper credit. That's called giving equal consideration. So if I'm going to take validity for my own creation here of this review series of videos, I'm going to give them credit for giving me the material to extend it. Macmillan Library Reference, USA. And I want you to pay attention. If you remember, I've told you, I've adopted the Library of Congress. It's one of the adoptions. It's part of the Hatha Trust, of which I adopted in whole. And it has university colleges all around the world. So it's basically just saying you have access to all that information in the public domain as a source of material facts and evidence. Reproduced for map, data from appendix, estimated Jewish losses in the Holocaust. So remember, folks, everything is just an estimate. They have no real true facts. There are so many discrepancies in the record. All we can do is make an assumption, presumption, or otherwise. Compiled by Yehuda Bauer and Robert Rosette from Encyclopedia of the Holocaust, Volume 4, pages 1797 to 1802. By Israel Gutman, Editor-in-Chief, copyright 1990 by Macmillan Publishing Company, reprinted by permission of Macmillan Library Reference, USA, a division of Simon & Schuster, Inc. Random House, Inc., excerpt from In Memory of W.B. Yeats, from W.H. Auden, Collected Poems of W.H. Auden, copyright 1940. So it's telling you the research material in the years they got it from. Copyright renewed 1968 by W.H. Auden, reprinted by permission of Random House, Inc., Library of Congress, cataloging in publication data, Goldhagen, Daniel. Now, the importance of that there is that the expression of the name, having the surname first, the family name, that's the military style. So again, I'm telling you, that record is a military record. Hitler's Willing Executioners, Ordinary Germans in the Holocaust, Daniel Goldhagen, first edition, includes bibliographical references, and index from ISBN 0679 446958. Holocaust, Jewish, 1939 to 1945. So they were evidently recording information about the Holocaust before the Holocaust actually started. And I want to take the time to remind everybody that Hitler and the German Nazi Party, they got their tactics from the Bolsheviks prior to the internment camps. Causes: anti-Semitism, Germany; war criminals, Germany; psychology. Manufactured in the United States of America. First edition. To Eric Goldhagen, my father and teacher. Maybe somebody that went through the Holocaust, and I don't know. We'll have to find out, huh? So, yes, Chicago manual style. That's what this government goes by, and it's specific. And that's the book that I used to find out what the obligor meant. When it came to that, a parenthesis, capital O, unparenthesis, that's a specifically styled mark. And I found it in the Government Publishing Office Style Manual. Not the Chicago, but the government. And it specifically is called an all mark. And when a man has to put his mark on a piece of paper, and there's a legal system that can validate that legal mark in various different ways, they've got a system to do that. And if you read that Government Publishing Office Styles Manual for that section, you'll find out the significance of that all mark and the signature and where it's placed. So we got to think about that stuff. So I'm going to go on and get started into the reading. This is a first page. It's a Alex de Tocqueville, Democracy in America quote. No man can struggle with advantage against the spirit of his age and country. And however powerful a man may be, it is hard for him to make his contemporaries share feelings and ideas which run counter to the general run of their hopes and desires. And this is where we get our materialistic run in life. We think because we're in this life and there's materialistic things that we're supposed to have those things. No, that's just the contemporary modern conveniences in life. If an economy is destroyed, you have to go back to your nature. But consistently, economies are lasting longer and longer, and people are less tending to go back to their nature, so that when a final crush does happen, there's going to be so many people lost, it's pathetic. I'm not saying it's not going to survive, but it's called natural bottlenecking. And there are some events in materialistic worlds like this, Mother Nature takes care of herself, and there's not a damn thing anybody can do about it. So essentially, by living on the conveniences of modern life, we instill a fear of not being able to, or of not being able to live without those conveniences, when that's the least of our worries. We need to remember how to live without them first. Pure and simple. So, Hitler's willing executioner's introduction, reconceiving central aspects of the Holocaust. Like I said, this is a different view of just a statistical element. It's going to the underlying principle that most people in the world at that time had some kind of relevant active part in it, because their opinions and the way they operate within the government structures by placing their votes and posting to the public records, and the way the news media interacts with them, public education, all of this, it all plays a part. And every person playing a part in there is, in fact, involved to some degree or another in their very own indoctrination, because they believe the conveniences will help them along the way. Captain Wolfgang Hoffmann was a zealous executioner of Jews. As the commander of one of the 3 companies of Police Battalion 101, he and his fellow officers led their men, who were not SS men, but ordinary Germans, in the deportation and gruesome slaughter in Poland of tens of thousands of Jewish men, women, and children. Yet this same man, in the midst of his genocidal activities, once stridently disobeyed a superior order that he deemed morally objectionable. This is a sick thought for people that are supposedly seeking out and know that all of us are somehow related, but somehow seeking out a superior race. That they would then turn around and say, well, it's morally objectionable to do it to this person and not this person. And that's the very basic element of a distinctive difference between one man and another, and just using that simple thing as an excuse when there are so many things that say we are in fact the image and likeness of each other. The order commanded that members of his company sign a declaration that had been sent to them. Hoffmann began his written refusal by saying that upon reading it, he had thought that an error had been made, because it appeared to me a piece of impertinence to demand of a decent German soldier to sign a declaration in which he obligates himself not to steal, not to plunder, and not to buy without paying. He continued by describing how unnecessary such a demand was, since his men of proper ideological conviction were fully aware that such activities were punishable offenses. So he used the very principle of saying, well, there's a discrepancy that places an impossibility. There's a discrepancy that places an impossibility. It's called a disagreement by stating facts, material facts that are evident of opposing views, and that's it, nothing more. At this point, there's still no cause, supposedly, for war by his ideological insanity that gives no equal consideration. Because when you weigh out the facts of the equal consideration, in his mind, he wouldn't want somebody plundering, stealing, and raping and robbing him either. This is reason and logic, that each and every one of us as independent beings stand up for ourselves and would not allow that to happen to ourselves. He also pronounced to his superiors his judgment of his men's character and actions, including, presumably, their slaughtering of Jews. So they were of the same mentality that slaughtering of the Jews was morally acceptable, and he was giving them praise for that. While objectionably, he's of the same character that would stand up against any such slaughter against his own men. This is inherently observable in his own statement that even asking them to pay for something would be objectionable. So if you're going to stand up against somebody else asking you to pay for something, don't you think you would be reasonably objective to anybody standing up and say they're going to slaughter you because you won't pay them? This is the fallacy of men's reason and logic when they stand up in insanity like that. And this is the same insanity that the general population is so willing to follow, simply because somebody else now gave them permission to do something that otherwise their spirit says they shouldn't. It's sickening. He wrote that his men's adherence to German norms of morality and conduct derives from their own free will and is not caused by a craving for advantages or fear of punishment. Hoffmann then declared defiantly, "As an officer, I regret, however, that I must set my view against that of the battalion commander and am not able to carry out the order, since I feel injured in my sense of honor. I must decline to sign a general declaration." In other words, he was holding his honor up higher than all else and refusing to carry out the order. And it was because he was fearing punishment, and therefore he was craving the advantagements of not being punished. Otherwise, he would have stood in honor of a reasonable and logical man and said, "Yeah, you're right. Let's go no further. I don't want to be punished," and just be real about it. But no, see, the power and control over a mass majority of people is a great thing. And it's done so easily through the language. Hoffmann's letter is astonishing and instructive for a number of reasons. Here is an officer who had already led his men in the genocidal slaughter of tens of thousands of Jews, yet deemed it an effrontery that anyone might suppose that he and his men would steal food from Poles. See, he was deflecting from the fact that he killed millions of Jews to the fact that anybody would accuse him from even stealing from the Poles, which was material facts and evidence, blatant and obvious. Not only was he stealing the food, he was stealing the Poles themselves and exterminating them, all of the Jewish Poles. So the insanity of deflecting from the major point to a minor one is just like Jack Talcott. But maybe I'm just obsessed with Jack Talcott. The genocidal killer's honor was wounded, and wounded doubly, for he was both a soldier and a German, rather than a child of God, as that German Nazi party was professing to find the master race of the children of God. They were slaughtering children of God. I wonder if they slaughtered the actual second coming before he got to come. Never know. It's a messed up world of imaginations, isn't it? Fear. His conception of the obligation that Germans owed the subhuman Poles must have been immeasurably greater than those owed Jews. Subhuman, agreeing again that they were of the same kind. Hoffmann also understood his parent institution to be so tolerant that he was willing to refuse a direct order and even to record his brazen insubordination in writing. I pose that the American people have become so tolerant of what they believe is a parent institution because they're still sucking their thumb on benefits and then trying to point the finger at the parent. Again, I agree, it's the people's fault. Quit sending your children to these military schools. Quit giving birth to persons in these military hospitals, literally in a spell of illness. 42 U.S. Code 1395, lowercase x, no parentheses, no commas, nothing. 42 U.S. Code 1395, lowercase x. Look it up. It's a set of definitions. The very first definition literally says, in plain writing, spell of illness. His judgment of his men, a judgment based no doubt on the compass of their activities, In other words, he told them to do something. They did it for him. He praised them for doing what he thought was morally correct. And they picked up on those morals and acted upon them, even though they weren't their own morals, maybe. But because they were given that power, it became their morals, including their genocidal ones, was that they acted not out of fear of punishment, but the willingness to assent. They acted from conviction according to their inner beliefs. They were more willing, inner belief-wise, to accept that it was okay to kill another man because he was somehow different, and give up the whole idea of being an image and likeness. Hoffmann's written refusal sets in sharp relief important, neglected as aspects of the Holocaust. Again, all these reports and statistics, they all refuse to put it on the people. The people that are sitting there pointing the fingers, you had a part to it too, because you didn't stand up and not do anything, or stand up and do something about it. George Floyd, you want to sit there and record it, but you don't want to kick the motherfucker in the head and tell him to knock his fucking shit off. And that may not be the best way to do it, but sometimes when we come to these hard times where people are refusing to do it, it might take that. It's a heeding and warning throughout history and repetition. It's been done before. I'm not saying I want to be a part of it. I'm not saying that's what needs to be done. I'm saying it happens all the time, and people need to start being aware of it and their part in it. Greetings, Nubs. Hey. Glad you joined us. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing better now that the present company is much better than it was before.
Yeah. We have to be aware of who our company is at all times.
I'm kind of that point where my kindness has not been accepted. And it's been much like your own kindness. Because what we are doing with that individual, not to digress from what you're doing by any means, I'm just saying you and I think alike in a lot of ways in regards to that particular situation. And I'm kind of with you, honestly. The more I think about it and ponder it in my brain, the more I realize it's just insane.
Yeah, the more people that get indoctrinated into life believing that somebody else has some kind of responsibility because they gave you a convenience and now you have some way of holding them liable or something, it's because of their own a willingness to give up the competence of understanding it. And this is why I say, if you don't know how to bank, you really shouldn't be handing over your banking stuff to a banker that's going to take advantage of you. I think the only time you would ever want to do that as a true convenience is if you already know the banking and how it works, so that you can catch them when they're doing something wrong. So that when they use that credit card or that debit card, that's clearly a Visa or MasterCard that's supposed to be treated as a credit card, you make sure that it's being treated as a credit card. You get a receipt that says credit, and that means it's a final portion of the transaction. Otherwise, what happens is you get a receipt for U.S. debit, proving that it was activated as a debit and not your debit, but the U.S. debit, and that somebody else took the credit.
You know, I'm in the process of a legal battle with my company. Well, I'm personally not. It's my company with the bank because they violated the contract. They let us use it like a Visa, and they let us go over the account limit because I had crossed that out. They accepted it. Actually, they didn't accept it. Another bank accepted my new terms, and then the bank bought it and didn't honor the original terms of the account.
Right.
So, needless to say, they're like, "Oh, well, you can't cross anything out. That's not acceptable." I said, "It's a contract. Of course I can."
Yeah, and that's part of
And
the
that
thing, though, is they're it's just like a utility company. They're acting as the first billing party, and then when you go in and get a checking account, savings account, you're a subcontractor, and they pass the billing on to you. This is why you end up with an insurance contract somewhere. That's the bond that supports all of your signatures. And again, they're
I
going to
never
use
signed anything.
they're going to get that social security number and write it up themselves. Somebody
That's
recently
why.
tried telling me they went to the hospital ER, and when they wanted the intake documentation, a copy of the intake documentation that they signed, the hospital refused it. Said, "Oh, no, 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 no. That's failure of public accommodation of equal consideration right from the beginning. You have to have the available terms and conditions that you agree to so that you can show them where they are misinterpreting it. I guarantee
Right.
you, I will find where it's at and show them." And that's
Right.
all it is having the competence and the ability to do that. And they're just trying to do everything they can by removing little pieces of the law by saying, well, this is our policy. That don't work. Everything you
She
do is
tried that.
supposed.
Yeah, she tried that when I first opened up the account, because that account doesn't have a social security number, and it does not have a license to open it up. I used two people.
Yeah.
And basically, the first day she told me she was going to call the police and get the fuck out of her bank. I said, I'll be back tomorrow. I think I probably told you this. I'd be back tomorrow. She sure did open up an account because I told her where to look for the law where it would hold her personally liable.
Yeah.
She researched the law, and I never, ever, ever signed a check whatsoever. I always put agent. So they couldn't go back on any of that shit. And that's why they closed the account, because they were not able to do what they're normally able to do.
Right. And that's that 12 USC 1813 deposit and 12 CFR 204.2. Both of them are sets of definitions. You find deposit.
Can you put that in the private chat? Just so I don't have a pen and I can look back at the private chat. Because this is a big bank and they have lots of money, but they broke the agreement.
Yeah. And we're going to take a look at this real quick, and I'm going to show you guys something. This is 12 U.S. Code 1813. Like I said, definitions. We're going to go down here. We're going to see the definition of deposit.
The opposite of what Jack did with his family and time.
Deposit.
Just saying.
The term deposit means the unpaid balance of money or its equivalent received or held by a bank or savings association in the usual course of business, and for which it has given or is obligated to give credit, either conditionally or unconditionally, to a commercial, checking, savings, time, or thrift account, or which is evidenced by its certificate of deposit. Thrift certificate, investment certificate, certificate of indebtedness, or other similar name. Anything passed as a debit, indebtedness, debit, or a check or draft drawn against a deposit account, deposition account, debited one place and reposited somewhere else, and certified by the bank or savings association, or a letter of credit, or a traveler's check on which the bank or savings association is primarily liable.
So in other words, from what I'm gathering, gathering from that, the bank has the liability, and what they're doing is they're putting the liability directly onto the consumer, as opposed to holding the liability.
And when they do that, now you carry the liability of the debit. And so when you use a debit card, even if it's got a Visa or MasterCard on there, everybody has you as the debtor. And so they're taking the credit, even at the local store, even down at the local gas station. Look at your receipt. They're claiming you're a debtor who owes a debt to the United States, and therefore it's a debit against the United States. And they're taking the credit, when in fact you are the creditor, and it should be an extension of credit to the United States for them to operate the funding in their circulatory system. We are lenders unto the nation. The states are stealing the credit.
So with that, does that have anything to do with the double set of books? I mean, obviously it does because of the banking, but like a direct tie. Because isn't that fraud by definition?
Only it's incompetence until they're given notice. The first duty in law is to give legal notice. Hey, I discovered an error. You're not going to accuse them of fraud. You're going to accuse them of incompetence that you accept on your own behalf as well, because I entered the error. Please forgive me. I repent. In that, I forgive you as well, because if it hadn't been for me entering that information, it would have never happened. That's
because you are the secondary. I gotcha. Right. I gotcha.
If I hadn't fallen temptation to the convenience and fallen into that trap, I would have never entered in those errors. I instead would do what I'm doing now, and that is informing you. I have a freedom of expression to give you knowledge, and you have a right to know. This is the parable, or the Chinese saying of, you feed a man for a day if you give him a fish. But if you teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. But the true principle is to make sure that you're passing on the lesson to others so they too can take advantage of it.
How to tie the knot.
Be careful
to tie everything together.
Right. Be careful to maintain good works that are profitable unto men.
Right. And that, to me, what I see that word meaning is, you're a fisherman, right?
Absolutely.
So your good works would be tying that knot so that the hook does not come off and leave you with nothing. I got it. I'm putting the shit together, man.
Ought. A unit of measure. A hook is a what? Is it an ought one, ought two, ought three, ought four?
Right. A unit of measure on how big that hook can be, in turn, how big of a fish you're able to take.
Yeah, you're going to keep chasing that bag, you're going to learn how to fish.
Well, I might not be able to keep up with you on the mountain the whole time while you're over there doing whatever. But I'll definitely be gathering food and wood, and I'll gather what needs to be gathered. And
I'm telling you what, some of them fresh high bush blueberries are some of the best. They're as big as your motherfucking thumb.
You fucking right.
Are sweet. You guys don't know the beginnings of going out and being with your nature. That's your true Holy Spirit. That's your physician. Ye are physicians. He who is whole is not in need of a physician. And what makes you whole? The world. It's her Holy Spirit. That's your next of kin. Why would you go to a false doctor to teach you about what your diet's supposed to be when you're supposed to go to your next of kin? She's been feeding you all her life. Your mom is your next of kin. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Go ahead, brother.
Cheers to that. I'm sure you're familiar with this.
Is that seaweed or what?
No, it's weed, but it ain't seaweed. You see it, though.
Yeah.
chlorophyll like a motherfucker. Let me tell you, that is just leaves. That's all it is just leaves. And that like I feel that shit hit me. Get all hot. It's like it's all well, you know. I mean, it's like it's not like getting high, but you're higher than hell.
Yeah. I've never done it yet, so I don't know.
Oh, juice some cannabis. Let me tell you. And honestly, I mean, as Benton pointed out, and rightfully so, this keeps me down, whereas that keeps me up, and I should just quit one. And it ain't going to be the upper. Yeah. What he said, honestly, he apologized for some reason. I just felt like he was throwing me under the bus because I was smoking, and he was right. You know, like it was shitty to get thrown under the bus, and it hurt a little bit, but my pride aside, I can't argue with logic. It'd be like arguing with the dictionary.
Well, I can argue with the dictionary all day long because I'll pull out several of them showing where they're different. So there really
you
is
are
no
able to.
Yeah, there really is no argument. What the material facts show is that there's a controversy in who's defining it or what. So again, coin your words.
I was right. I was standing in line the other day, and there was an officer that I don't know exactly what his story was, but he was standing rather close to me. And I looked at the cashier and I said, "You sure do have some seethy customers here." And he looked at me like I was the devil incarnate. I don't think he understands what seethy means. Otherwise, he probably would not look like a seethy individual. Well, he was mean mugging me the other day. He mean mugged me the other day in the same place at probably about the same time. Next time he does it, because I know he's going to do it, I'm going to pull up that Google definition for him, and I'm going to show him this is what seethy means. Your actions are that of a seethy motherfucker. Like I said, go fuck yourself. I did have one question for you. I do have one question for you. So I watched this guy. He does videographing of the local police department in St. Paul and ultimately other areas. He's not really one of the ones that, you know, gets in their face and he's literally just reporting the news, what's going on. He was assaulted by an officer the other day, and it was a violation of the First Amendment, clearly. I mean, the guy literally touched him. He put hands. It would have been 4th or 5th degree assault. Nothing major. The guy wasn't truly harmed. Nevertheless, I ended up calling in and talking to the superior officer. He told me he didn't have time for my crime. Is it meritable? I mean, like, I've talked to IA about it. IA was fucking retarded, except for one lady. She actually had some common courtesy and common compassion and understanding. I told her what her officer did was a treasonous act. He literally went outside of his oath to that Constitution by that action. And if we have one bad apple, the whole thing gets spoiled.
Did he speak to an attorney during this?
The officer or the guy?
The guy.
No, not to my knowledge.
Seems to me the law is pretty well set. That if
that's kind of what I thought.
If the man doesn't want to talk to the police, they have to be able to come forth and prove that he's criminally guilty. And
right.
If you want to speak to him, he has to be. They can only communicate with him through the attorney. So
right.
Everything that goes so far without an attorney, even if it goes to court, that judge has no way of convicting somebody that's not represented by an attorney. And this is true throughout the entire case. They have no way to communicate with somebody that's not represented by an attorney. So if you're going through,
I don't understand. I just don't understand. I get you. I'm just ultimately what it boils down to is that's the city where my business is, and I don't want that kind of bullshit in my city. And I say my city because my business is in that city. That
Yep.
means I have busyness to do, and I interact with these individuals on a normal basis because they're constantly taking break, which is fine. Man needs a break if he's working an 8 hours. Sure. Even cops need breaks. I'm not heartless, but you will do your job when you're on my dime and my time.
Yeah, it was kind of neat. Yesterday, I spoke to Lena Height down here at the ADA, Assistant District Attorney, about that bench warrant, and I just simply let her know, I'm trying to place some corrections in on it for the record. They're trying to tell me I can't talk to the administrative law judge in private. Now, according to the way I understand the law, this has to do with the judicial office, the administrative law judge, and board of contract appeals as a neutral and independent forum within the United States Postal Service to make the proper judicial determination that's never been placed on the record. And it clearly shows that not only has it not been placed on the record, but in this bench warrant that you recently issued through your courts, it clearly shows there's no finances, no bond was found, no long title, no charges, and yet somebody out of thin air magically created a $350 bond. Now, I don't know what you're going to do about it, but here I am, and I think it would be pretty ridiculous to try to make a false presentment like that. And I'm not here to make any accusations or anything. I'm here to clear up the record and make sure it gets corrected. And that's an extension of immunity for all of us. Because, Lena, I understand. I'm the one that entered those data elements. But now that I realize what's going on, you can take a look at that record and you can see there were 93 cases prior to that in 33 years, but that ended 7 years ago. And that's because I've been educating myself through very diligent research. And I'm telling you, Lena, I'm not playing around. I'm done with it. I'm here to come with the correction of the record, and I'm getting a hold of the Bureau of Vital Statistics, the Health and Human Services, State Adjutant General, Governor, all the way up the line. I need to get everybody on the same bandwagon and get things corrected because I'm not making accusations, and the immunity extends to everybody involved. And that's, okay, well, there's not really anything I can do to help you. Well, I've given you notice. So again, if you want to come get me on those warrants, please do so.
I told that same thing. Well, not exact the same thing, but something very, very similar to to the local, not mine, but to the local.
Hey, wait a minute. That's Nub's dog over there whining and crying.
He's a little bitch. He wants to play, and I'm on the damn phone, and he gets pissed off, and he's a big baby, but yet he's a big scary pit bull. It's kind of ironic. Nevertheless, I was talking with my local whatever he is, commander, chief, whatever the fuck he is, some military thing. And there's supposedly a piece of paper that has my name on it in his office, and I said, "All right, you by all means, you come on down here. You put your motherfucking name on it to say that I did something that caused loss, injury, or harm. And you in fact, I would come down to your office if you're willing to put your name and be personally liable. I am putting you on notice that if you do come to get me, that I will be requiring a signature and a signed sworn affidavit, as well as all of the documents that you need to become a police officer, because I'm going to make sure to inspect all of those. And if I find anything that is unsavory, then the record will be needing to be corrected on your end." I don't have any shiny bracelets for some reason. It's not showing. Revenue Stamp Act. Okay. Okay.
It's a
I was
documentary stamp. That's a documentary stamp.
I was talking to a guy that does legal review and whatnot, and I showed him that 26 USC. Boy, he sure did get angry. That's not what that means. Oh,
Yep.
yes, it is.
These are stamped, but it's not the proper documentary stamp affixed to it. See, it can't be stamped in it. That's not the proper documentary stamp. So the certificate of live birth doesn't have one. This one has a silver one, but that's an inlay.
But that's not
So I don't
valid.
know if
Right.
yeah, I don't know if they count that. It's not a like a U.S. postage stamp for posting in the proper venues, and that's what it's about.
Right.
You've got to post it in the proper venue. If you're posting something in this venue, but it belongs in this venue, it throws the accounting off in this venue.
Which they would be preferring to correct the record, so their job is easier.
Yep.
I'm only trying to be of service to you, good sir.
Yep. It's to a great advantage if you learn how to do that, folks.
I wonder why they don't like help.
Yeah, every step along the way, I've done nothing but assert that I'm only trying to help. I'm not trying to confuse anybody. I'm only trying to help. And just because I'm trying to help through an education doesn't mean that you have to be offended because I'm giving you information. I'm not trying to say I'm smarter than you. I'm telling you something's wrong. Here's the correction. And no, I've never been a banker. No, I've never been an attorney. No, I've never been a contract surveyor. No, I've never been an architect. But I can do my research, and under reason and logic, if I see something that's absolutely wrong, I'm going to say something.
See something, say something, right?
It's pathetic how much people are not willing to listen to the truth, because once they listen to the truth of even just one straw, it tears down their whole straw house. Because they thought it was convenient to let somebody else let them live in a cheap piece of shit. Fucking victims. You know? And it's just, again, it's taking upon that convenience of being a statistic. And that's how sick it is. Spell of illness to become a statistic and take upon the conveniences in that research experiment by the military. And everybody signs up for it. Yeah. Go ahead.
When I was about 18, I walked into the Social Security office. This was right before 9/11. So it wasn't, everything didn't all pop, but it was on the border. And I walked in and I said, I want to renounce my citizenship. Boy, you should. I was young, dumb, and boy, I should have followed through. But there was every legal event that they could come throw at me. No, you don't want to do. Are you a terrorist or something? Are you blah blah? I'm like, no, I just see the bullshit. And I saw it even way back then.
Yeah, well, I'm going to do tomorrow when I do my video. I'm going to do a quick reminder of another video I did prior. Turning guns into doorknobs. And so tomorrow, hopefully I'll get time to do a quick review of my previous video that I did, turning guns into doorknobs. And then tomorrow night when I do the reading, I'll remind you of it so everybody can at least check it out if you don't make it to the stream of doing it tomorrow. I'll probably do it in the mid-afternoon.
Couldn't you also make a conveyance a doorknob? I mean, yes. It's the same logic.
Yes. It's the language and how you use it. All you have to do is be able to express what you're trying to paint, the picture you're trying to paint. And I'll put it to you like this, guys. if you went out to the store and you found a puzzle maker and you looked at the shelves along Walmart, say, and you're going to go get a puzzle for your little nephew. He's like 10 years old. So you're going to go out and you're going to get him a puzzle. You're going to get him a 100-piece puzzle, but they've got 5 different puzzles. You don't know which one to get him. They're all made by the same company. They're all 100-piece puzzles. So you decide, fuck it, they're cheap. I'm going to buy them all 5. He gets excited in opening these puzzles. And this kid is going to have a mind that if he opened all 5 of those puzzles and mixed all them puzzles up, he's going to figure out a way to get up all them 5 puzzles. Somewhere along the way, he's going to realize that all 5 puzzles have the same top left corner piece.
Same fucking thing.
Same top right corner piece. The same bottom left. The same and he's going to realize they're all made of the exact same pieces. They're uniform throughout all the puzzles. The difference is the picture you see on top. So while you can take all those 5 puzzles and you can take the top left corner piece of this puzzle, you can put it with this other puzzle. And so you can get 5 puzzles put together, but the pictures of none of them are
going to make sense. Right.
This is the English language.
I've been doing some research on where and how and all that stuff, and I don't know. Now, I'm still doing research on flamenco, but the Scaligerian dialect just does not, it doesn't sit very well. And it goes back to all of this, if you really think about it. It's the master puzzle.
Yeah, well, it's the convenience. And think about this, folks. You've seen my script. I created my own script, right? Think about the commercial system. Huh?
And read it?
Yeah, I can read it. I've got a key to it.
No, I'm saying people in YouTube have a problem reading scripts.
Oh, yeah. Particularly mine. You got to get the key to mine. But in the commercial system, we have over time, you can see the development of the financial languages. And one of those financial languages are the SKU codes. They started out as SKU codes on the products at the stores. SCU, SKU codes. And then they used barcodes. And now you see the Q codes. If you take my language, think about this, Nubs. If you take my language and kind of bunched it up, wouldn't it look just like one of them little Q codes?
Mm-hmm.
So all they're doing.
Didn't it all start with numbers on the arm, though?
Well, no, it started with numbers and letters. But what I'm getting at is now they're able to use symbols that the mind doesn't recognize, but a machine does.
Mm-hmm.
Can you read that Q code without a scanner?
Nope.
How about a barcode?
Nope.
Only if you've got the manual there showing what the numbers go with that barcode. Does the Q code have them numbers?
Nope.
You see the delineation?
Yep. Couldn't that be also considered a stamp since the post office uses it as a stamp?
There are different forms of stamps. When it comes to like documentary stamps and stuff, it's got to be literally affixed to it. So they can take and stamp it on a sticker and then stick the sticker on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's what they're doing. That's what I'm saying. Like if you look at a lot of newer postage stamps, especially for like mailers and stuff like that, it started changing a couple years back when I was in the post office, because I would look at them and be like, what the fuck is this? And I would go to kick it, and I kicked it for the first week, and my supervisor came back and he's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I didn't read the memo.
Yeah. Yeah, those are postal frankings. They have a franking privilege, and that's the comment down below. The franking privilege is your right to be the master of the contract. So the premise is that if it's a United States postal stamp, then they get to cancel it. Okay. So the claim is that if you get to cancel it, it's because it's your stamp. So if you truly have the right to be the master of the contract, that means you get to cancel the stamp, but it also means you get to make your own stamp to cancel, proving your equal station in life. So if you want to put your stamp side by side and cancel it in your manner, that will show the equal consideration of a translation.
That's exactly what that is, isn't it? It's my interpretation of their document affixed side by side, giving equal. That's fucking good.
I have a county clerk down here try to deny a filing against for my companion as her trustee against a credit collector. They turned around, sent it back, said, you have to file this electronically. No. Nope. I sent it through the mail. That's recording it. You, as a clerk, have a duty to file it. Filing it means taking the definitive paper form and converting it to the electronic form. And that is the process of filing. To press numbered keys or other identifiers. Do your job. I'm not going to do it for you. So they sent it back anyway, right? Well, they used that franking privilege for $2.
They put their own stamp. And you put your own stamp on and send it back for equal consent. They fucking hate you. They so fucking hate you. That's why I like you, Wizard. That's fucking funny.
Yeah, I'll find it. But yeah,
I don't believe many people, but I believe you.
Yeah, we put 2 $1 stamps on it, affixed right next to it, and then cross-signed both of them and dated it. We've got it in our possession. We've got it in our possession as material fact evidence of the process that they failed.
Yep. Now I've heard that you have to use a special like blue ink or red ink to cancel it.
I'll use a motherfucking crayon.
Gotcha.
It goes to intent.
It's the intent. It's the intent. I gotcha. See, I'm picking up if I'm answering my own questions.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And if you're intent, that means you're your own covering. Because you're in the tent. There it is. And is that a creation of your own? And that is your creation, and therefore the only one that can cancel it is you. Yep. And the Treaty of Berne protects it as a creative work.
Yeah,
and because it has a value established, and the secretary has to accept the value established because that's his motherfucking job.
And it's still sealed. It's a little old and tattered, but it's still sealed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could get into a lot of trouble with you, buddy.
We get more trouble if we take Jack.
Well, I told him I would be happy to. He complains about nobody offering a meal or a sit-down conversation. I've offered both of these. So he's lying. Yep. All he needs to do is come on over. I'll break bread with him. Yep. Maybe not all I break with him, but I'll break bread.
Somebody's got a Dave's or two says, why Switzerland?
because
Well,
that's the seed of Satan.
if you remember the Louisiana Purchase, the Louisiana
I do.
Purchase, the Louisiana Purchase was done because Napoleon was running short on funds for his war, right? And that used to be the French franc that determined the weights and measures of the monetary system through the Treaty of Berne and all that. They switched upon that at that time to Switzerland, and now it's the Swiss franc. So we now don't have a French confederacy, we have a Swiss confederacy. And that Swiss confederacy is where the federal chancellor sits, and that is for equity as it relates to chancellor. So the equity, again, is at the very top. You can't assert equity at a fucking administrative court. You have to exist outside of it and let them know that you're dealing with the upper people, and it's going to trickle down. Because if you don't know that you're one of the top dogs as an equal station in life, and you sit there and you're afraid to deal with these people and communicate with them peacefully through private communications, ain't no one going to hear you.
Right. What's the deal with their flag over there in Switzerland? It's a backdrop of red with a white cross on it. Are you familiar with the sign of the cross? And I'm not talking the sign of Christianity. I'm talking the one that dates back further. Do you know, is that where that comes from? Because that was a sign of civilized people, is the cross. But normally it was in a circle as opposed to a square, but you can't really make a circle flag.
Yeah, and that's that the flugge cross. It goes out and across, and then the next ones come out, go down, and so it's not a straight cross. It's got the
Right.
flared
Right.
ends, and
Kind of like a fleur de lis, only
right,
bigger.
right, and that is again, the origins of time show that the French were the world's money controllers. And even though it was for England and stuff during a period of time, it was a kind of a transition between Rome and England. And again, if you go back, you find French is more related to the Greek Christian programs. And that's how it generated through Northern Europe and then eventually over to Americas and everything. The Christians, the spread of Christianity in the Western world is the primary thing of all of it through the education system. The Christianity is more of a military religion than most anything, I think, throughout history and time.
Well, look at its alleged, I'll say alleged origins, because I wasn't fucking there. So I'm not going to create a firm fact that I don't have a fucking clue on. But if you read like the Popol Vuh, they have an English translation. Dude, that book is almost identical, like almost word for word identical to the Bible. Like scary identical to the Bible. And then you look at, like, I've been looking into history, and like the first king in India, or what was it called back then? Something Stan, Hindustan. If you look at the first emperor of Hindustan, it was Emperor Maya. Buddha's mom, her name was Maya. So where do you get all these Mayas? Well, I would say if you just go across the ocean a little bit, you come across an interesting group of people that did a lot of exploring in their canoe-like boots.
Well, and there's always, you hear the theories about the Egypt being here in the Americas instead. So if they say that's the origins, then maybe it started here and
moved
that way.
Thoth came from, Thoth came from the Atlanteans, right? Yeah. Well, if you look at things like the Bimini Road in Florida as a whole, and you look at the archaeology, well, my biggest question has always been, why is the crest why is the Mediterranean supposedly supposed to be the heart and soul of the Moorish Empire, when the crest is backwards in the the water's over there, and there's no star. But
Yep.
you come over to the American coast and look at the Gulf of Mexico, where all the buildings are of Moorish architecture. You have a star. It's right there at Cuba. Cuba the star.
And they do the same thing with the swastika.
Yep.
So,
Flip it over, turn it backwards, and it means something all brand new.
yep. All right. Well, folks, we're an hour and 15 minutes into it. I want to thank our brother Nubs for joining me on the panel. We'll get into some more reading again tomorrow. Like I said, I'm going to come in middle afternoon probably and do a review of Turning Guns into Doorknobs, the story of Gary Davis and his expatriatism, where he walked into the UN and said he'd had enough. And that's basically the premise here. We have to learn how to tell people that, listen, we're not going to let you be our slave masters. You know, we're not going to listen to your indoctrination. We are educators, and we have the right to freely express ourselves, and everybody else has a right to know. And that's a simple message. That's why it's important. Like I said at the earlier beginning of this video, the copyright and disclaimer is to let people know that you don't know what the truth is, but you're getting as close as you can be. Here's your sources. Please come discuss it with us. We're not here to argue. We're here to bring a greater truth. That's all. So, again, thanks for joining me, and we'll see you again next time. God bless you.
All mine.
You bet. You know I love you guys, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. So be blessed, and we'll see you again next time. Bye now.